The Persona series is a series that needs almost no introduction, yet I'm gonna give it one anyways. Going from a series popular amongst JRPG fans almost exclusively, it's grown to become a household name in the gaming sphere amongst most people who play video games. It's a spin-off to the larger Megami Tensei franchise that's become larger than the series it's a spin-off of, yada yada Joker and Smash Bros, something something Peak Fiction. You know this shit? I know you know this shit. The series as a whole is incredibly popular nowadays. Okay, these ones are incredibly popular nowadays, receiving critical acclaim amongst critics and the general public alike for their rich narratives, deep characters, fun gameplay, and interesting scenarios. Now, is any of that actually true, though? No, of course it isn't! I first found out about this series whenever most other people did. And from that point onward, Persona was always a series that I wanted to try, but I just never got around to playing. I also just kinda couldn't because I was a Nintendo child growing up, and while I did have a PS2, my parents would follow the age ratings of video games very, very diligently, and genuinely would not let me play E10 Plus games until I was 10 plus. I had to sneak behind their backs to play my first M-rated game at the age of, 14. Also, I wasn't as literate in, console modding and emulation as I am now, so basically, no Persona games until they came to Switch. But the games came to Switch, and I continued to not fucking play them until Persona 3 Reload was announced and all my friends started playing through it and were talking about it. So because of that, I decided to play Persona 3 Fez out of spite because fuck this bullshit. A decision that I think ended up heavily paying off in the end, but that's for later. Now, what other people would probably consider a masterfully told story that deals with the complexities of your own mortality with an engaging cast of characters and a killer atmosphere is something that I would personally consider a poorly paced mess of a game that is more boring than it is life-changing, with characters that are just kinda nothing and incredibly dull, simple gameplay. Now, I realize that a good chunk of you probably want me dead on the spot for declaring that this game is anything less than amazing, though despite that initial opening bit and how I may come off throughout the rest of the video, I like to have an open mind about things.
But Tyler, you said that you hated this shit!
Au contraire, Krusty Bear. I never said I hated the game. I just don't fucking like it. But hey, I'm always willing to have my mind changed. I think it's a waste of time automatically wishing for the worst in something, and there were elements about this game that I did enjoy, so I think it's fair to go over everything again, reanalyze everything, and see how it all turns out, how I enjoy it after this look over again. Basically, this video just functions as an excuse for me to organize my thoughts in a coherent manner. I can't promise that the thoughts will be coherent, but they'll be organized in a way that fits me, but, you know, it doesn't matter. I also just want to say right now that if you disagree with me at any point throughout this video, that's fine. You're completely validated in your own opinion. I don't really think that you need to be told that because, you know, this is an opinion piece for me. If you don't agree with me, then that's fine. If you like Persona 3, if you love Persona 3 even, that's awesome. You are entirely validated in that opinion, and I'm not here to take that away from you. I'm simply just here to voice my opinions about the game, and like I said, organize my thoughts in a coherent manner, so I can find the answer that I'm looking for. And hey, if that answer isn't found, I have other options.
Wait, Tyler, what the hell are you doing?
I'm giving myself an easy way out, because shit will probably hit the fan considering the game we're talking about.
Tyler? I promise you it's not that serious. It's just a video game, dude.
Oh, really? Just a video game? Alright, how about you play it for yourself and tell me how you like it?
You know what? I just might. You know, it really can't be that bad.
Oh, you're done? Alright. So, let's cut the shit and stop delaying. Let's talk about Persona 3. Fez. On PS2. I got shit to say about the other versions later, but we're playing this one. Oh yeah, and spoilers ahead. I'm not interested in making a spoiler-free review of this game. I don't don't care. So, this is a spoiler warning. I'll have another one later in the video for, more in-depth spoilers, but, if you haven't played the game, just click off the fucking video. This video's not for you. The story follows our main protagonist, Salamander David, which, by the way, is his canon name. Atlas says so, and any disagreements with me are simply for attention, and they should be ignored. Salamander David is a high school student who's transferring to Tatsumi Port Island to enroll at Gekkoukan High School, and he's being housed in a dormitory for the year he attends. As he makes his journey to the dorm in this intro cutscene, we see him walk through this busy street with him blasting music from his headphones, though at the same time as all of this, we see another story unfold as a girl sits on the floor and puts what looks to be a gun to her head, though after hesitating a decent amount, before she pulls the trigger, she drops the gun and starts crying, collapsing under the gravity of the situation as the music playing overtakes the mood. Eventually, Salamander David arrives at the dorm, though as he gets there he notices that things are off. His music fades away as the world turns green and there are coffins everywhere. As he walks in, he notices that there's a kid in the room, asking him to sign his name on a contract, telling him that he's wholly responsible for everything that he'll do. Which, yeah, that's how free will works. The kid disappears, but with that exit, the girl from earlier comes in, breathing heavily, propelling tension into the air.
Takuma, wait!
Yeah, okay, this intro's cool. It's composed super strangely, which is gonna be a theme with a lot of the other cutscenes in the game, and the sound mixing is all over the place here specifically, but you can tell it's on purpose. The intro is so fucking striking, and it leaves such an impression on the player. It's chaotic, yet it feels super reserved, though calm and tense whenever it needs to be. And man, this art style is so fucking cool. The girls explain who they are and they take you to your room. Yukari Takaba and Mitsuru Kirijo. The next day, you get taken to school and you meet Junpei Iori. And if you can't tell by me highlighting their names, they're important characters. Some more time passes and the green arrives once again, bringing danger to the dorm. We see another character, Akihiko Sanada, rush through the door after having a bout with some bullshit outside. Yukari comes to your room and tells you that you gotta get the hell out of there, so naturally that means run to the fucking roof, which is right out in the open. This helps nobody. Naturally, because this was a stupid decision, they get cornered. Yukari tries to take the easy way out, but to no avail as she drops the gun. Salamander David, finally accepting the reality of the situation though, sees the gun on the ground and is told to pick it up by the child from before. His breath is heavy and he hesitates initially, though that hesitation quickly turns into understanding as he says the magic words, Persona. And then BANG! He awakens to his new power, and using it, he drives back the danger. Alright, I'm not immune to this shit. This is badass. Unfortunately, it's a little too badass, and you die. Only joking, unfortunately. Unfortunately. In what I can only assume is an attempt at torture, Persona 3 goes on for 80 more hours after this, and Salamander David wakes up from his week-long nap, and shortly after, he's briefed on the situation, as it's really hard to continue gaslighting someone whenever they see something as insane as this. He's told that there's essentially an hour that takes place after midnight every single night, only visible to a few people who have potential. And every single night, their school turns into this tall-ass building called Tartarus, which houses monsters called shadows. Every single full moon, a much bigger, more powerful shadow will escape Tartarus, and it's your job alongside your new dorm mates to exterminate the shadows and end the dark hour. So, you know, that's pretty cool. But I haven't bitched in a little bit, and I don't think it's right to divulge the whole narrative right away, because there's a lot more that makes up this game. And it's a varying quality, to say the least. Persona 3 was a massive turning point for Atlus. If you've played the 3 Persona games that came out before this one, like I haven't played those ones yet. I'm a fucking loser. I've only played the bad one. The game is a weird middle point from the series, to my understanding, as it has more DNA from the first 3 games than the other modern games, yet it is very obviously trying to break free and do its own thing, which Atlus desperately needed at the time after coming off the heels of the Digital Devil Saga duology and Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne. Good games, no doubt, I'm sure, but those games put Atlus in this situation. Because of this, Persona 3 kinda had to just be experimental and try new shit. And part of this was splitting the game into 2 halves, one half being a dungeon-crawling RPG where you scale Tartarus killing the shadows, the other half being a life simulator that lets you live out your days as a teenager in place Japan. Both halves play off of one another in a variety of ways, but for the sake of this video, we're gonna talk about the former first, the RPG portion of the game. Now, by nature of me playing this game on a PS2, you guys probably know what I'm gonna say.
Tartarus is boring! It's the same shit over and over again. Plus, you can't control your party members. Ugh, and they're so stupid, too. This game is unplayable and awful!
That is an opinion. One that a lot of people who have played this game seem to agree with wholeheartedly. Though, there's a lot more depth to pretty much all of these mechanics that I think deserve a much closer look. Let's start with Tartarus itself, as it's probably the easiest part of the gameplay side of things to digest. It's tedious as all hell. Though that's not really a super deep answer, so I'll go more in depth. Tartarus is essentially a series of randomly generated floors that house shadows, and you have to climb to the top over the course of the game's in-game calendar, which runs from April all the way until January the next year. That's a long fucking time, almost a full year, and Tartarus is the only dungeon in the game, bar a few exceptions. So to stretch it out over the course of a full in-game year, they had to make this tower tall as hell, and stretch it out they definitely did. Tartarus has 264 fucking floors. Yeah, 264. And a reminder, this is the only substantial dungeon in the game, so a bulk of the dungeon crawling is just going up through Tartarus. Now, everything is split up into chunks, like, you can't climb to the top of Tartarus right away. There are different blocks, and to make it so the dungeon lasts the full 80-hour runtime of the game, you get stopped at multiple points throughout the game until the story happens and you can move on. But as you can imagine, going through 264 anything is gonna wear on you after a certain point. Like I mentioned before, it's all randomly generated, so I don't expect them to, like, actually give level design to all 264 floors, but it just leads to a super mindless experience where you just have to run, find the stairs, run again, find the stairs until you reach the next roadblock and have to stop until the story happens. In fact, half the time for me, the stairs would just spawn right next to me anyways, which was good because it meant that I didn't have to go looking for them nearly as often, but it also made it incredibly unchallenging. Also, outside of the music changing slightly and the colors of the environment changing, nothing really changes within Tartarus, so it's the exact same gameplay loop from start to end. They introduced the idea of the full moon operations having unique dungeon layouts, but even then, they don't go all the way with it. There is a grand total of one dungeon that actually feels like a dungeon. It's got puzzle solving and a unique environment backing it alongside exterminating the shadows, and it's pretty fucking fun, honestly. So it's a shame that the other dungeons are just like this. And that's only if you get lucky, because half the time there are no fucking dungeons. Now, I never really dreaded the time I spent going through the dungeon crawling. It was more so boring than anything. The game's action and challenge picks up heavily in the actual battle system, which is very, very different depending on the version you play. Though, we're just gonna talk about the version that I played right now. Persona 3 was the introduction to a lot of things in Persona's battle system and set the foundation for the other two games to follow. Your party will consist of your fellow comrades in the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or Cs for short, all of whom awoke to similar powers that Salamander David did, who always has to stay present in the party, by the way. He's a bit unique, though, as he's the only one who's able to wield multiple personas, which is how you and your friends are able to call upon your powers. Salamander David can swap between a bunch of ones that you get to fuse in the Velvet Room, and therefore he's really the only one that you get to dedicate to building. You want to give him the most powerful personas possible and also make sure that he's got enough toys to play with so he can fill every necessary role. Your party members, however, aren't nearly as special, as they only get one persona throughout the entire game, so they're a bit more rigid in their case uses and all have specific roles to play. People love to compare SMT and Pokemon a lot, so we'll use it for this metaphor as it helps explain my point the best. Salamander David is your ordinary trainer. He can catch all kinds of Pokemon and swap between them as much as he wants. Though your other party members will get their starter Pokemon, and that's it. That's all they get. They'll start with their Charmander, and hell, maybe it'll evolve into Charmeleon. Maybe even a Charizard. Not in this game though, because third-tier party member personas weren't a thing until Persona 4 Golden, but just imagine. Though, they'll never be able to catch any other Pokemon and will just have that Charizard for the entire journey. Though in regards to your other party members, there's a very specific attribute applied to all of them in the PS2 versions of the game that I can't ignore. And chances are, if you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm about to talk about.
You can't control your fucking party members!
Right, that's it. People fucking hate this aspect about the game. And it's not just Bear either. Pretty much everybody who has played this game, it feels, on the internet at least, they've come away with this exact opinion, and it's kind of bizarre, honestly.
The worst thing by far of Persona 3 gameplay is the fact that you cannot control your teammates' moves.
I think the combat is kind of bad.
Can't control your party members in battle. Their AI is incredibly bad to boot.
In the PS2 version, you can't control your party members, and the AI is really stupid.
In Fez, you trust the AI to make the right move, and while you can give them orders, like being more offensive or relying on healing, it's not ideal. It's never ideal.
And look, I totally get it. Not being able to control your party members seems like a massive flaw on paper, especially considering the fact that most other RPGs, they don't do this. This is kind of taboo, unless you're like Miitopia. But this game's kind of like bad, so no one cares. We're not gonna talk about it. I don't actually think Miitopia is that bad. It's just kind of boring. I can understand it fully. Most other RPGs let you control your party members, so when you have that control taken away from you, that kinda sucks. However, I think that this game's battle system has been horribly misrepresented throughout the years, and if anyone's gonna come to its defense, I guess it's gotta be me. Friendly reminder that I'm the guy who hates these stupid-ass games. So many people like to label this as, like, a mistake that needed to be fixed in the later games, or act as if this wasn't a deliberate design choice when, like, dude, the game was designed in this way. It was completely intentional. The party members acting completely on their own volition is essentially just an artistic choice the developers took, and in my opinion, it works exactly how they intended it to. Another thing I see people like to claim is that the AI is, like, really broken and just doesn't work. How they don't do what you want them to, but, like, guys, there's a whole fucking menu in the battle UI that lets you tell them what to do. This is the tactics menu. Basically, on Salamander David's turn, you're able to set the tactics that all your party members will follow. It starts off pretty simple, and I'll concede that, yeah, at the beginning, they do kinda suck, because all the good tactics that you'll be using unlock later on throughout the game. You've got Act Freely, which is self-explanatory, Heal and Support, which will make your party members heal you or use their buffing and debuffing skills, Full Assault, which will have them focus entirely on damage, ignoring 1-mores, Knock Down, which will make them hit every enemy with the goal to knock them down, going for 1-mores, Conserve SP, which will make them focus on physical skills, so on and so forth. And honestly, this shit is fucking cool. I used to consider it a burden like the rest of the internet, and yeah, okay, if you gave me the option to control my party members like a normal RPG, I'd take that in a heartbeat. I know this is true because Persona 4 and 5 do let you control your party members, but with the way it's executed here, it's honestly really fun. Swapping tactics so that your party can exploit all of your enemies' weaknesses is fun as hell, and honestly, I never got the whole their AI is bad argument because I'd argue it works really, really damn well, almost too well sometimes. Anytime they do something stupid, 9 times out of 10, it's on you for not swapping their tactic to something else. Sometimes they do disobey the tactic that they're set to, but whenever they do, there is some logic behind it. For example, if you set someone to heal and support at the beginning of battle when nobody's taken any damage, they'll just attack as normal because obviously they can't heal. Or if they see a kill on an enemy, they'll go for the kill instead of healing, as that's more helpful in the current moment. Are they perfect all the time? No, of course not. They're controlled by AI, they're gonna mess up every now and then, but I think the assertion that they just don't work is incredibly wrong. And if you think this, it honestly just makes me believe that you just ignored the tactics menu for the whole 80-hour experience. In fact, that reminds me actually, I was talking to a friend one time who held this exact standpoint, and I simply asked them, did you use the tactics menu? They said, no, they did not. And if that anecdote describes you as well, and you're very, very much against the AI party members in general, claiming that they don't work, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it here. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Say you don't like it, fine, I don't care. You don't have to like it, and like I said, if I was given the option to control my party members over the system in place now, I'd probably take it. But for the love of God, please don't try and pretend like the AI doesn't work, because they really do. They work perfectly fine, and if we're being real here, the AI works better than they do in every other release of Persona 3, and in the other 2 modern Persona games, because in all of those other games, they remove a good chunk of the tactics introduced in this game, which are entirely necessary for how this battle system works at a baseline level. Hell, when Persona 4 and 5 added new mechanics to their battle systems, they didn't add tactics that take advantage of these, forgetting that those new mechanics are pretty much integral to those games' battle systems, so the AI is working with a battle system that doesn't even really apply to the games that it's in anymore. In Persona 3, it's very clearly an artistic choice that is made to make you feel like you're the leader of this group of people, which is what Salamander David is designated as very early on in the narrative. He's the leader of the group and therefore is telling everybody what to do. Like, the battle ends if he dies. The group can't perform all-out attacks if he's knocked down or inflicted with an ailment. Like I mentioned before, he's literally the one giving them commands in the battle. They all very clearly rely on him to get through every single battle in the game. All this really helps drive home the fact that he's the one leading the group, which is something that can't really be said about the other two Persona protagonists, who both barely feel like leaders in comparison, despite what the narratives of those games may want you to believe. This is the only game that feels like it makes an active effort to actually make you feel like this too. Not just in the gameplay, but also in the narrative, which I'll get to later. But I think it's cool that the developers went the extra mile to have this shine through in the battle system. Even if through all this you don't like how it is in the game, you should really at least try and understand where they were coming from and try and respect the vision. I think the real bad AI that you guys should be focusing on is the shit with Akihiko, Junpei, and Ryoji in the bathhouse scene later on in the game. Akihiko, no! Anyways, as for the meat of the combat system, the game sports a modified version of the press-turn battle system from SMT Nocturne, which I haven't played, but from my basic understanding of 3 Google searches, what my friends tell me, and also playing Metaphor ReFantasia, which also uses the press-turn battle system, the system gives both you and the enemy a fixed amount of actions, though by exploiting their weaknesses, you're rewarded with more actions per turn. In Persona 3, this general idea is still here, but it works a bit differently. The game has 9 types of affinities, 3 physical and the rest elemental. All the party members and shadows throughout the game are weak to certain affinities, with a few exceptions. Hitting them with an affinity that they're weak to will knock them down and allow you to act again, classified in this game as a 1 more. Knocking everyone down will allow you to perform an all-out attack, which is a super strong attack that does damage to every enemy on the field. Now I'm gonna make a bold statement here and probably make some enemies as well, but Persona 3 has the best battle system of all 3 modern Persona games by a fucking mile. And here are a few reasons why. First off, every party member has a weapon that's completely separate from their personas, which will allow them to use one of 3 physical affinities: Slash, Strike, or Pierce. This alone makes you think about who you want to bring with you, as you want to make sure that you have all 3 types so you can maximize the amount of enemies that you can knock down. On top of this, Salamander David, just like how he's capable of using all sorts of personas, he's capable of holding all weapon types except for guns and knives, which are exclusive to Aigis and Koromari respectively. This makes so much sense, as it really allows you to build Salamander David in whatever way you see fit for every encounter. Each weapon type also has pros and cons to them as well. The axes are incredibly powerful and pack a massive punch, but that's offset by them generally being more inaccurate, which makes it easier for you to miss, and missing weapon attacks in this game specifically runs the risk of you tripping and thus knocking yourself down for a turn. Bows, on the other hand, are generally weaker and have better accuracy, but they're generally less reliable than most other weapons. But by using them, you're completely immune to tripping. The weapon Salamander David has equipped will also matter outside of battle too. Swords will allow you to attack enemies on the overworld super fast, which is a valuable skill to have at your disposal, as getting the first turn in battle is massively helpful. Axes, which likewise are very, very great in battle, are really slow in the overworld and they don't have a lot of range. Gloves are faster but still have pretty poor range, but if that range is a problem for you, just use the bows, which allow you to snipe motherfuckers from super far away.
This guy got hit by a shotgun, but he just can't handle it.
This one decision, letting Salamander David use all the weapon types, adds so much depth and thought to the battle system, and genuinely, I couldn't imagine this game without that. I couldn't imagine the game without it. Another thing is how the knockdown system works as a whole. Getting back up will eat an entire turn, but that applies for the enemies as well, so sometimes it's beneficial to not go for an all-out attack and let them waste their turn getting up, effectively stun-locking them. I use this strategy a lot throughout the game, even during the Reaper fight. And yeah, sure, it might be a little cheap, but it requires some thought behind it, and it forces you to analyze the situation as it happens and utilize every single part of the battle system to your advantage, rewarding you for understanding how everything plays with one another. Knocking everyone down is even a fun thing to do, as it encourages you to experiment with every single enemy encounter just so you can figure out their affinities. All physical attacks have the power to occasionally land critical hits too, which will also bring enemies down. Single target skills are always reliable, and will always allow you to act again as long as you land them on an enemy that's weak to it. But multi-target magic skills, you have to hit everybody to give you another action. They're less powerful, and you might hit a downed enemy, which will automatically bring them back up on their feet. And also, they run the risk of missing a lot of enemies as well, which can really fuck you in this game. So while on paper, always using multi-target magic sounds better, sometimes you have to be meticulous about it. I really, really like all of these mechanics, and I'll genuinely die on the hill that this is the most thought out that the Persona battle system has been to this day. However, that's kind of all the positive stuff I have to say about the battle system, because there's a lot of dumb shit here that drags it down. First of all, party composition in this game is really shitty and just not fun. You have obvious standouts like Yukari, who's just objectively the best healer in the game combined with strong wind magic, alongside Akihiko, who is bar none the best party member in the entire game, as he fits into pretty much every team composition almost perfectly, with his strong strike and electric skills, pretty good single target healing and debuff skills. He is, in my opinion, the Swiss Army knife of the party. With those two, that's already 2 slots filled out, but filling out that last one is honestly kind of hard to do because the rest of them are kind of just mediocre or flat out bad. Junpei is really fun to use, as I think he crits more often than the rest of the party in the original. He certainly does in Reload, but we're not talking about that version. Alongside defense buffing skills, which comes in super handy. But for most of the game, he has really poor fire magic, which kind of forces that aspect of him to only be used for knockdowns. Mitsuru is... I don't know if this is like a hot take, but I think she's kind of redundant. She also gets single target healing and can do the most magic damage in the game with her strong ice skills alongside the ice amp passive. But ignoring the fact that she just has a dead skill slot that she loves to spam for no reason, there aren't really many fights where I found her application all that useful. Aegis is alright just for the fact that she gets access to attack and defense buffs, all 3 physical affinities, and Orgia mode, which lets her boost damage for a bit. She's alright. Then you have Kanemata and Koromaru, who overlap heavily with Akihiko, Yukari, and Junpei. Ken shares his electric skills with Akihiko and is a healer, as well as using pierce damage with his weapon. So at that point, he's just kind of a worse Yukari, because she also uses pierce attacks with her weapon. Koromaru's fire skills overlap with Junpei, and while he's more magic focused than Junpei, who's more physically oriented, the dog just kinda sucks in battle. Now, technically, Ken and Koromaru both focus on light and dark damage respectively, but light and dark magic fucking suck ass and nuts in this game because the only skills that they have are just insta-kills. Yeah, that's right. 2 whole affinities in this game are saved for attacks whose entire purpose are to just kill you instantly. They're not 100% accurate, which balances them, unless you're weak to them, which Ken and Koromaru are, as they're weak to the insta-kill type that they don't have, which, in my opinion, just makes them a massive liability in pretty much every fight. Oh yeah, and you have Shinjiro as well. He's just kinda mediocre. He doesn't really do one thing particularly well outside of having 0 weaknesses, and you get him too far late into the game for him to really make a splash, so it didn't really use him. On top of your party members sucking ass, the difficulty curve also sucks ass. Partly because it's not really a curve at all, it's more like... The difficulty in this game jumps around so goddamn much, and it's mostly found with the Tartarus bosses here. Every 10 floors or so in Tartarus, you'll have to fight a more powerful shadow than the rest of the ones you find in here, essentially functioning as mini-bosses. These guys can either be massive pushovers or insanely fucking difficult for no discernible reason, where you have to go out and cook up personas specifically designed to take them down. Which, okay, is fine, I guess. You know, the game isn't holding your hand and treating you like a toddler, but it's as if you're giving me, like, the illusion of choice, but then you tell me that I have to go back and cook up a fucking super soldier just to get past this single roadblock because they can fucking one-shot you and pull out some of the most degenerate shit ever. But the other side of the difficulty problem is arguably worse, because after a certain point in the game, you just become a demigod and can solo anything the game throws at you. That's not even mentioning the fact that the one more battle system used in all the Persona games is so just inherently one-sided, so that makes it so when the game is hard, it's too hard, and when the game is easy, it's too easy. The balance is so genuinely out of whack here, it's insane. Also, boss design in this game is a fucking joke, because there are a few interesting ideas here, like the first full moon fight where you have to defeat it under a certain time limit, or the boss before a special moment.
What happens on that day? This is a tough case, even for Krusty Bear, ace detective.
Fuck you, man. However, both and really every other boss in this game fall flat in practice because they're all just damage sponges that take 18 billion hits to kill for no reason. Now, this is a problem with all 3 modern Persona games, to be fair, because it seems like the series' main answer to make something seem harder is by bloating an enemy's health bar to all hell while making them immune to all affinities and status conditions, which honestly just feels like a cop-out, unless you're Strega for some reason.
Or you can do this.
Train and lottery bosses have more interesting ideas to them that I think make them a lot more memorable amongst every other boss in the game. but they're the exception, not the norm, so on paper, the game has a really fun and in-depth battle system, but in practice, it's so incredibly one-sided most of the time, with a very inconsistent difficulty curve that makes battles a slog to get through. Hell, even making personas to take down the bosses is a fucking slog. See, the optimal way to make your super powerful personas is to fuse them together to get a new one. And as you fuse them together, you can pass down skills to create super powerful monsters. This is a really good system, and yeah, I know it's not unique to the Persona games because it's borrowed from the larger SMT series, but hey, it works fine, great. There is a catch though in this game. The skills they inherit are random. Yeah, so anytime that you want to get a specific set of skills on a persona, you have to reset over and over and over and over again. It becomes such a fucking drag. Most of the time, I'm not willing to compromise with a shitty moveset. I'm going to reset until I get what I want or as close to what I want as I can. But because getting what you want is entirely up to RNG, I eventually just say fuck it and move on. My most powerful personas in this game ended up having shitty or useless moves on them just because I couldn't get exactly what I needed on them. It's like a minor annoyance, but one that really shouldn't be there. But okay, that's half the game. The gameplay has a lot of fun elements, but a lot of little blemishes, but fine. Overall, I had a baseline level of fun with the game, but that's the best thing I can say about it. It's not unfun. I enjoyed myself to some extent while playing, but again, that's half of the game. What's up with that other half? Well, like I mentioned earlier, it's a social simulator where you go throughout your day-to-day life as a high school student. You play out every single day in the year, hanging out with your friends and deepening your bonds through your experiences with them with the newly introduced social link system. These serve two purposes, allowing you to experience a mini storyline involving a specific character, helping them through their problems, but also for every single rank on the social link, it allows you to create more and more personas, while also giving you an initial power boost when fusing one that shares an arcana with that social link. This goes both ways too, though, as by having a persona with a matching arcana equipped, it will allow you to grow closer to that person faster than usual. So you have to make sure that the personas you have can not only help you out in battle, but also help you out in the real world as well. Social links, they're fine. I don't really have any reservations about the concept. Going through them feels like you're going through little filler episodes in an anime or something like that. Just little side narratives to tide you over until the actual story kicks off. I'm not gonna go over every single social link in this video because I'm not insane, but I will say that overall, this game has some pretty good ones, and some pretty damn forgettable ones.
It's because enemies brutal.
I'm giving the child Red Bull?
They're the only one world.
What the fuck? I really liked the old couple story, as well as the French foreign exchange student bebes. The latter is a lot less emotionally impactful as the former, but it's just really cute, and I really enjoyed seeing it through. I liked Keisuke's a good amount as well, and I thought Tanaka's was pretty funny.
I would love to withdraw all the money in my bank account.
Though easily, and you probably saw this coming, the best social link in the game by far is Akinari, the dying young man. The conversations had with him about his own mortality and trying to come to grips with his own inevitable death are super fucking sad. And man, that scene where he finally dies after finishing the book and telling you to hold on to it, reflecting on the time that he spent with you and hoping that he can see you again on the other side, it's perfect. It's honestly perfect. This is the Persona 3 social link, as it perfectly encapsulates the themes of the game, and is one that sticks with me for pretty much the entire narrative, showing you that your life has meaning to the people around you no matter what hand you've been dealt, how your experiences can affect the people you interact with, and how important it is to celebrate your life while you have it. Genuinely beautiful stuff, and it's one of the few things in this game that I think they handled flawlessly. Unfortunately though, not every social link in this game can be created equally. A good chunk of them are just kind of boring in my opinion, and because of that, you can kind of tell that this was their first crack at the concept. As for every Akinari in the game, whose story perfectly encapsulates the themes of the game in his short narrative, you get a Kenji who spends the entirety of his social link wanting to date his teacher, or God forbid you get a Nozomi.
Or you get a pedophile.
That's also true, which brings me to the part of the social link system that I fucking hate the most. Now, being able to experience these short little narratives about side characters is somehow not the main draw of the social link system. Or rather, it's half the picture, because the other half is the fact that it is partially advertised as a dating simulator. I personally don't pay any attention to this aspect of it because it's kinda cringe, but whatever. Some people find it fun, maybe a little too fun, but I can accept that it's just not for me, so I'm not gonna harp on the people who find enjoyment from this mechanic. Though, other issues start to spring from this baseline concept of it being a dating simulator. Firstly, if you rank up far enough with any female social link that's romanceable, you automatically get locked into a relationship with them. There's no getting out of it. If you max it out, you get a girlfriend. Which I understand is a tempting offer for Persona fans, but there's a catch. What happens if you max out multiple girls? Dare I say, you max out every single social link in the game. This edition just makes maxing out every social link really annoying because there's a stupid ass mechanic in here where the girls can get jealous of one another. From my understanding, if you hang out with a girl enough and have started social links with a few other girls, the girls that you aren't hanging out with will get jealous and start reversing the social link you have with them. Which makes trying to max out everyone in this game specifically super annoying, as you have to play on an extremely fucking tight timer. Hell, even playing casually this is annoying, and it's because of this that I didn't bother with any of the girls after a certain point because they were just more trouble than it was worth. Which is unfortunate because half of your party members are girls, so I essentially had to give up extra time to hang out with the people that the narrative actually focuses on and Salamander David actually considers friends because of this stupid design choice.
But Tyler, if you just can't hang out with them, why not hang out with the other party members? Like Junpei, Akihiko, Ken, Koro Dog, and Shinjiro!
Yeah, okay, that's a fine enough point, I guess. There's like 4 girls that join your party throughout the adventure. So that's like 4 characters that you don't get to hang out with nearly as much. So yeah, let's focus on the other ones, because, you know, they've got to have social links, right? Wait, Bear, why are you even contesting? Why are you giving me questions like that, dude? You've played the game. You know the answer.
Look, man, I don't know.
So, for what I can only assume is a decision made by Atlus wanting to push the dating simulator aspect of the social link system above the whole forming all kinds of bonds aspect of it, your female party members are the only party members in this game to get social links. Why? The entire point of the social links is to explore these characters and the little stories that they get up to throughout the game. I mean, that's how I interpret this mechanic, so it just baffles me that the people that you spend the entire game hanging out with don't also get social links over these random students that they just made up for this system. Like, dude, you had options that you could have used. And no, you can't use the whole, oh, but you spent enough time hanging out with them throughout the story and the game anyways, they develop enough throughout the narrative excuse, because 1, most of the characters in this cast have the same amount of depth as a sheet of cardboard, and 2, you literally get to hang out with the girls! And yeah, sure, the guys get social links in Portable, but that's only on the female route, and you cannot convince me that because of that, they weren't only added as social links so that you could romance them. I'm also just not gonna give that game credit for adding these social links because they should have been there from the very start. Why should I praise them for doing the bare fucking minimum? And also, there's even more weird pedophilic shit in there, which is just like, what were the priorities here? Like, are you telling me that in the original game, dating high schoolers, getting groomed, being complicit in degeneracy, and whatever the fuck happens in Nozomi's social link are more important than the other party members? Hell, even Aigis wasn't safe from this because her social link wasn't even in the original Persona 3. They added it in Fez. So only 3 of your party members have social links out of the 22 in the game. What a joke. Also, now's a good enough time to bring this up as any. Every single time you go out on a social link adventure, you have to hear this fucking shit. Persona music is pretty much half of what the series is known for at this point, because you have so many people out there going like,
Oh my god, Persona music is peak, guys! Like, it's so good. Like, oh my god, I can't believe my soundtrack came with a free video game. Like, guys, music is so good!
So you'd think by hearing this non-stop that the music in these games would actually be good, right? Well, it is for 2 of them at least. Unfortunately though, this game's OST is, not. It's pretty bad, actually, I think. Now, before you guys comment and tell me that I'm stupid for not liking this song because it's secretly peak, I don't really care. Music is the most subjective art form of them all, I feel, and what sounds good to you could sound like absolute ass to me. You're listening to the proof right now. But man, I don't like a lot of the songs in Persona 3. A lot of them just sound super fucking random and too chaotic. I'm awful at critiquing music in general, no matter if it's negative or positive, but I just can't listen to most of these songs in the soundtrack and act like I don't absolutely hate them. Though there is one point in specific that I can home in on, Lotus Juice. And I'm gonna be honest here, I don't like Lotus Juice. I have absolutely nothing against the guy whatsoever. He's obviously got his fans, and I'm not going to deny the fact that he had to work to where he got now. If you like his music, that's great. I'm genuinely happy for you. I know it sounds like I'm being sarcastic right now, but I genuinely am happy that you can enjoy this music. As for me, though, man, I'm sorry. I can't when he's fucking saying shit that sounds like this.
Let it go, let it out, let it go, let it out, take a deep breath, deep breath, deep breath, deep breath.
There's an interview where Lotus Juice was talking about how he wrote the lyrics for Mass Destruction in like 15 minutes or something, and like, yeah, man, we can fucking tell. we can tell. You don't have to tell us that.
What the fuck, yo?
But okay, I know that I'm being a bit of a fucking bastard right now. Music is subjective as hell, like I said, and I personally don't like the way the priorities in the social link system are handled. The gameplay has a solid core, but it fumbles on the execution hard. Even though those points are very important, I don't think that's what a lot of people are particularly concerned about with this game. What most people truly value above all else in the game is in its narrative and its characters. But I guess I kind of already showed my hand and let you in on a few of my opinions too early. I'll go more in depth with those in a second, but I think my absolute biggest issue with the game lies with the inherent fact that the social link system, by design, forces you to play out every single day of the year from April to January. Every single day of the year.
Watch out, guys. He's gonna start bitching again.
Holy shit, this game is terribly paced. As I mentioned earlier, every single full moon, a much scarier shadow will escape Tartarus, and you've gotta fight it. Usually on these nights as well is when a bigger overall story moment happens, and when the plot starts to move along. But even still, that's kind of overselling what happens in the narrative. The plot is so unbelievably static for most of this 80-hour game. It starts off with an introduction to the idea of the Dark Hour and the shadows, and yeah, that becomes your routine for a good bit, as your goal is to kill all the full moon shadows and end the Dark Hour. Every single full moon will sprinkle in new ideas. Maybe you'll get a scene or two before introducing a new character, detailing something else important, but that's really all you get. Most of the time spent in this game is time spent planting the seeds for these moments to pay off later in the story. Much, much later in the story, to be specific. And that's fine, but when that's all you're doing for the first half of the game, when the actual story stays unmoving, then it makes the game feel super lopsided. Combining the awful pacing with the monotony of Tartarus, the shit-ass soundtrack, and generally mediocre social links, which, by the way, are what you have to do to fill your time with whenever you aren't scaling Tartarus, you're left with a game that feels incredibly fucking tedious to get through, and it also doesn't really help that the dialogue also sucks ass.
Maybe I'm just jealous of Mitsuru-senpai. I mean, why my father and not hers?
That's a crazy thing to say. That is a crazy thing to say.
I completely forgot about that.
This is something that all the modern Persona games are guilty of, but it starts here. This game fucking reeks of not being able to let the player interpret things for themselves and spelling every single little thing out for you just so you don't misinterpret what's going on. Oh, is he going? He's going through all of them! He's going through all of them! Shut the fuck up!
No, I don't like him. I don't like any of them.
Now, this isn't an inherent flaw with a video game. A game can be chatty as hell and still be worthwhile. Hell, some of my favorite games of all time are guilty of spelling things out for the player, like, constantly. But for one, those games aren't awfully paced. Or, okay, as awfully paced as this game, so they don't end up spending 80% of their runtime dragging their feet as this game does. But they also end up having much stronger casts of characters or a really strong narrative to move it above that chatty dialogue. So while in most cases it still ends up being a flaw, it's not one that's nearly as exaggerated as it is in Persona 3. And on the topic of the characters, I'll just say it, Persona 3's cast is really, really goddamn boring. I don't feel anything from most of these characters, which honestly really sucks because compared to the other two modern Persona games, this game easily spends the most time fleshing out these characters. Or, well, trying to at least. By the way, if you skipped the spoiler warning at the beginning, leave now, because now I'm going to be talking about all the important moments in the game, so leave before you hear me say that. Yukari is the first character that you see in the game outside of Salamander David, and she's just okay. I don't really feel that strongly about her one way or the other. Her main motivation is that her dad is dead. Okay, there's more to it than that, but that's pretty much all you know for most of the game. Her father worked for the Kirijo Group, which is a company that specializes in shadow research. But due to a disagreement within the company, her dad gets killed, but not before recording a message to Yukari. Though, in an attempt to not reopen those old wounds, Yukari holds on to the message, not reading it for years. However, by not confronting her problems, she just ends up causing more for herself. It gets worse for her when you bring Mitsuru into the picture, who's the daughter of Takeharu Kirijo. Yeah, that Kirijo. Yukari comes out of the gate with a deep dislike for her, and this friction builds more and more throughout the game. Though, I can't really say that any of this tension, or really anything surrounding Yukari's character, had any sort of effect on me. Mitsuru is pretty similar in that regard. She feels bad about her family that came before her, and is only really in seas to make amends for her past. Though, again, she's not really much more than that. Fuka Yamagishi, the party's navigator, is, again, just kinda whatever. She got bullied by this one girl and locked in the school overnight because of her, getting trapped in Tartarus. And even though this is fucking psychopathic behavior, Fuka tries to mend her relationship with her. She also struggles heavily with a deep-rooted inferiority complex, worrying about how people see her. Though as the game goes on and she molds herself into seas more and more, she accepts that her power was given to her to let her see other people, to bring them happiness by just being who she is around the people that care about her. I like the idea presented here, but honestly, I don't really feel anything towards this arc. I can understand why it would do something for someone though, and I don't want to take that away from you if she was able to do something for you. At the very least, she's easily got the most depth out of everyone that I've talked about so far. But it's just really unfortunate that the only party members that get social links in this game are all just kind of mediocre characters. And no, before you say anything, no, their social links don't really add much. But hey, it's not just exclusive to them either. Akihiko is also similarly pretty damn basic. His whole thing is that he's an orphan, which isn't really that unique to him because everyone else in the cast is also an orphan. But he's also haunted by his past because his little sister died. So because of this, his entire character is that he's gotta be strong. He's gonna become strong, and he does everything in his power to become the strongest that there is. This is genuinely the most prevalent thing I took away from his character throughout the game. Though it's okay, because he's friends with Shinjiro Aragaki, who is just a walking plot device that exists just to die and further Akihiko and Ken's characters. And even still, Akihiko has a single scene after Shinjiro dies where he does this. Then he immediately turns around and makes the declaration that he's going to avenge Shinjiro. Listen, I know I'm being a massive shitter here, but I really can't grasp onto any of these characters simply because of the stories they have going on. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, they're really damn boring. Like, yeah, they all have their motivations, but they don't really have much beyond those basic motivations to push them onward. Akihiko wants to be strong, Mitsuru wants to be better than the people that came before her, Koromaru is a dog. They stay consistent throughout the game, but these basic-ass motivations do nothing for me. When the fucking dog that doesn't speak has a better story going on than most of the other people in this cast, I think we have a massive problem here. In fact, speaking of Koromaru, I honestly think he might just be the best character in the game because he doesn't talk. So he doesn't get the chance to just say some stupid shit like this.
You mean hack into their system? That's illegal.
That's illegal.
Also, I feel like it's important to mention that this was the first game in the series to implement the wacky animal sidekick trope within the series, so even still, I can't fully let Koromaru off the hook because he led to these two mistakes. So the cast is just really mediocre. One may say that every character in a cast of characters doesn't need to be great, and to that I agree, but come on guys, that was 6 fucking characters. One of them being a dog, who I expect to not have much going on under the hood. While some of these guys definitely have their moments, and I wouldn't say I outright hate anyone in the cast, which is something that I cannot say about the other modern Persona games, I don't really have any strong feelings for any of these guys. They aren't bad, but at the same time, you'd catch me dead in a fucking Walmart parking lot before I call any of them good. There's also something to be said that almost everybody that I mentioned here either has one or both of their parental figures dead as well. It feels like this game's automatic default to make someone out to be more tragic than they actually are is to kill off their family members. It feels lazy as hell. And yes, the dog is an orphan too, because of course he is. Why wouldn't he be? Though, thankfully, not everybody in this cast is as mind-numbingly boring as everyone that I mentioned before this. There are some solid characters in the game that I actually really ended up liking, and the first one that falls into this category is Ken Amada. Is that a hot take? I actually don't know if people like Ken or not. Ken is an elementary school student who, say it with me now, is also an orphan. However, the blood of his deceased family member doesn't lie on some mystery entity. It lies on one of your other party members, Shinjiro Aragaki. One day, during an excursion, Shinjiro's persona went berserk and accidentally ended up killing a bystander, Ken's mom. Whenever Shinjiro eventually rejoins Seas, Ken takes immediate notice of this and starts to plot something, all culminating on October 4th, where the two of them are completely absent for the full moon fight. Ken makes his intentions clear immediately, saying that he's going to kill Shinjiro to avenge his mother. Though, Shinjiro doesn't fight back. He says that he's wholly deserving of this and won't try to stop him, only warning Ken that if he goes through with this, he'll spiral down the same path that Shinji did. Though before anything else can escalate further, this guy... Oh yeah, by the way, this guy's a part of another group called Strega who can also go into the Dark Hour, and they want it to continue and oppose Seas at every turn. They're all kind of massive pushovers though, and they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, so that's why I haven't brought them up until now. Takaya, the leader of Strega, who could very well be mistaken for your average Portland, Oregon citizen, comes out and threatens the two's life. Shinji steps in to protect Ken, but Takaya mentions that no matter what, Shinjiro is fated to die eventually, as he's been taking suppressants as a way to ease the memories of what he had done. Though, by doing this, he was accepting a slow, gradual death regardless of what happens here. And it's with this that the two of them make a decision.
No!
Shinjiro gives his life so that Ken can continue on with his, refusing to let Ken fall into the same rut that he's found himself in, as up until this very moment, Ken chose to live his life for the sake of revenge, placing all of that energy towards this very moment, though even though he ends up getting exactly what he wanted, it doesn't make it any better. I know I said before this that Shinjiro is kind of a whatever character, and I still mostly agree with that. His contributions to the story only really lead up to this moment specifically, but how he goes on to affect Ken's resolve going forward is what I really like about this moment. His death gives Ken the clarity that he so desperately needed in that moment. While Shinjiro thought that he had thrown his life away before this, he was able to use it to help someone out. Ken decides to move forward without any animosity towards him, instead with honor. While Ken doesn't really shine anymore after this moment, I think that his relationship with Shinjiro is really strong, and it sticks out to me as one of my favorite things in the entire game. As after this moment, I think the game starts to get really good. Though, while I do really like Ken, I think someone else in the cast far outshines him, and it helps that he's there from pretty much the beginning of the story. Junpei Iori. I think Junpei is the only case in this entire ass game where most of his screen time is used to develop him in some meaningful way. And what helps even more is that he's got a few things going on too. Firstly, he's a bit salty over the fact that Salamander David gets assigned a leader and he doesn't, which is incredibly childish on his behalf, but it comes from a feeling of inadequacy, and it's something that he wrestles with on and off throughout the game. Yeah, it can be a little inconsistent as the game kind of flip-flops between whether or not they want him to be angry or passive towards you, and unfortunately this arc is kind of undercut by the fact that Junpei kind of gets shit on by everybody throughout the game, which definitely has the ability to get super annoying, but I don't think him getting made fun of all the time is entirely unwarranted, because sometimes he's definitely asking for it. But there are many points within the game where we're shown that deep down, Seas does genuinely care about him. There's one small interaction between Junpei and Yukari in December that I just really enjoy, where when everyone's discussing what they want to do with Ryoji, who we'll come back to that later, Yukari teases him, which causes Junpei to flip out at everyone. Yukari, realizing that Junpei is genuinely terrified about what's gonna happen, she apologizes to him. It's a small moment, but it's really damn sweet, and it shows that through everything else that happens throughout the game, they all still do care about him. That's only half of Junpei's character, though. Him getting punched down all the time and learning to grow past it and accept the hand that he's been dealt. It's not perfect, and there's definitely a lot of holes there, but overall, I really like this aspect of his character. And I think it reaches a solid conclusion near the end of the game where he just finally talks to Salamander David and makes the declaration that no matter what, he'll always be there for him, that he's his best friend through and through. Though it's the other half that I draw a lot more genuine criticism towards, being Junpei's relationship with Chidori, another member of Strega. Basically, Junpei comes across this girl who likes to play and draw, and starts to hang around her a lot to her confusion, eventually bragging to her about how he's been working with C's. This then eventually causes him to get kidnapped and drilled for info, though the rest of the team comes in to save Junpei and take Chidori into custody. Junpei, even though he got fucking kidnapped by her, decides to visit her and still makes an attempt to keep in contact with her, though Chidori reveals that she resents Junpei because she enjoys the time she spends with him. She used to not fear death at all, but Junpei has given her something to live for, which terrifies her. This eventually reaching a boiling point when the rest of Strega comes and rescues Chidori, culminating in Strega shooting and killing Junpei. However, Chidori uses the last bit of her power to revive him, trading her life for his, declaring her love for him and giving Junpei a second chance to live his life not just for him, but for her as well. Now, did all that go by really fucking fast? Because don't worry, it moves that quickly in the actual game as well. Junpei and Chidori's relationship, on paper, is really good. However, they have a grand total of like, what, 4 interactions prior to Junpei getting kidnapped by her, and then like 2 more before she dies. I'm sorry, I can't reasonably believe that their relationship would go from complete strangers to I love you and I would literally die for you in the span of a few short interactions. And yeah, you could make the argument that Junpei is super fucking whipped, but fuck you. I think that the scenes that we do get are really effective, and I really do like the scene where Chidori declares her love for Junpei right before reviving him, though it feels like we jumped from nothing to this super quickly, and it feels like it falls super short, but whatever, it did exactly what it needed to. Chidori died to further Junpei's character. Whatever. It's fine, I'm chill with that. So can somebody please tell me, why the fuck can you revive Chidori? Yeah, this is a thing that exists, and it's honestly so goddamn baffling. Like, yeah, sure, it's optional, but the fact that Atlas even had the idea to include this in the first place just shows a complete lack of commitment to the story. I fucking hate this, because if you do revive Chidori, what was this entire bit for? But you want to know what I hate even more than this? The fact that in Persona 3 Portable, if you play as FemC, you can save Shinjiro as well. Because yeah, why the hell would we kill off this character? What the fuck are stakes in this narrative? There are no consequences to anything that happens because fan service reigns supreme. You know what? Talking about that shit has made me, like, genuinely kind of angry, so you know what? We're gonna fucking talk about Portable. We're gonna talk about Portable, and we're gonna talk about Reload. I realize that this section comes across as the whole, like, fucking old man yells at cloud meme. And it's like, oh, these new versions suck ass. Played the old version. Old version better. That's not really what I'm trying to get at, even though it sounds like that's what I'm trying to get at. Because that'd be kind of stupid on my part, because I haven't played Portable or Reload, nor do I ever intend to, because they're fucking 80-hour games, and I don't want to play Persona 3 again. Anytime soon, at least. So, yeah, it'd be incredibly stupid for me to try and police what versions everyone plays. However, I do think that the arguments that Reload specifically has spawned in regards to the original version of the game, I think is really fucking stupid and incredibly disrespectful. It's one thing that people are praising Persona 3 Reload for shit that the original game did better. That's fine, I couldn't really care less about that, because Persona 3 Reload was a lot of people's first experience with the game. So, yeah, I'm not gonna police people like that. But it is an entirely different thing pretending that the original version of the game, which is structurally sound as is completely irrelevant because of stuff that the new games add that kind of spit in the face of what Persona 3 meant to be originally. In fact, I don't think that we should pretend that these newer versions of the games are inherently definitive at all, because The Persona 3 Portable remaster, the one that you can buy on, like, modern platforms like PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, that version of the game, yeah, it uses AI upscaling and the audio is all fucked up. That is not definitive at all. I would not, like, call that a good way to experience Persona 3. Like, dude, the current re-release of a re-release is bad. that's saying a lot. Have a personal preference. Fine. I don't care. I have mine, obviously, being the original game on PS2. Or Fez, specifically, because it's just the original game with more content. But I'm not gonna act elitist over the fact that I like this version more, and I think the other ones are bad. Because I don't really like the other versions that much, but, like, they're still Persona 3 at the end of the day. They put Persona 3 in front of more eyeballs, and one could argue that's the most important aspect of a remake. And yeah, I think that's fair. It's just, they do different things, and I think that's important to make that distinction. I said this back in my The World Ends With You video, and even though my opinions on that remaster on Switch have definitely soured a lot since then, I still think the fact that it puts a game as great as The World Ends With You on the Switch in the first place, being able to put it in front of more eyeballs, because the Switch is, like, one of the most popular game consoles out right now, I think that's important, because this is a great game, this is my favorite game of all time, and it's able to put the game in front of more eyeballs, like I said. So, at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters what I think, though, also, I don't really give a shit if people disagree with me on this, because this stuff matters to me personally, and I think it's important to make the distinction that, hey, the remakes are the same game at the end of the day, but they make a lot of weird changes and don't immediately invalidate the original game. The original game still has merit, so let's not pretend that it doesn't. It's basically all I wanted to say throughout this section, so I've kind of been yapping throughout the whole thing.
Okay, thanks for all of that! Now, are we gonna get back on track here, or are you just gonna keep bitching about versions of the game that you didn't play?
Yeah, that's fair. So, let's refocus and just talk about the ending of the game now. I think that's fair.
So during November, this guy shows up. His name is Ryoji, and he's important to the plot now. We also find out that this guy, the Director of Seas, is actually a bad guy and had the group kill every single full moon shadow for his own benefit. So anyways, you all die. Cutting back to Ryoji though, we find out that he and Aigis had history together. 10 years before the events of the game, they fought on this bridge while Ryoji took on the form of Death. To avoid losing, Aigis decided to seal Death inside of a child who was on the bridge at the time watching the events unfold. Conveniently though, the child just so happened to be Salamander David. Death would later reappear to him as Pharos, though eventually Pharos leaves and Ryoji comes in to take his place, being enrolled at Gekkoukan High and assimilating with the group. However, now that the truth is out, Ryoji becomes super apologetic and sorry for the hand that he's forced to play. Ryoji reveals that he's the appriser for Nyx, a being that will descend onto the world come January 31st and bring about the Fall, which will cause the end of humanity and all life as we know it. The Fall is unavoidable, and now everybody at Seas has to cope with the fact that they're going to die no matter what. And I think that this is fucking sick. The vibe here at this point in the game delivers the exact emotion that the characters were feeling, or at least it did for me. I genuinely was filled with so much despair for what was gonna happen, and I honestly couldn't understand why, because up to this point, the game was incredibly mediocre, but little did I know, I was playing right into the game's trap. The game really made me feel for Seas at the end. Even though I didn't really think that any of these guys were great as actual characters, man, I didn't want them to fucking die. I didn't want them to be filled with nothing but pure dread for their last few months alive. And Ryoji feels similarly, and he gives the group an ultimatum. He says that if he were to be killed, then everybody would forget their memories of the Dark Hour and all the time that they've spent together throughout the past year. Though they would also be completely oblivious to the Fall, and their lives would just end without them ever knowing. Though, if they choose to not kill Ryoji, they'll keep their memories, though they'll be completely conscious for all of time, living out the Fall in complete agony and suffering. Or at least I think that's what happens. I don't think the actual details of the Fall are ever directly detailed, which honestly makes the whole thing a lot scarier, as the only visuals you get from it are from Ryoji and Ryoji alone, which shrouds the entire thing in mystery. Ryoji gives them until the end of the month to decide. Or rather, for Salamander David to decide, as since he was the one to house Death inside of him all this time, they're like
connected or something, which is probably why they're both voiced by Yuri Lowenthal. And I honestly really like this, as it gives Salamander David a personal stake in this narrative in a way that the other two protagonists don't really get. In Persona 4, everything just kind of happens around the protagonist, and while in Persona 5, the protag takes a slightly more proactive role in the story, it ultimately doesn't really have that same sense of impact or importance as it does here. Salamander David not only has a much more important role to play as an actual leader, which is exemplified in the gameplay, he's also the only one with the necessary power to take down Nyx. This, combined with what happens next, is what makes Salamander David my favorite protagonist out of the three. Like, yeah, ultimately he's about as interesting as a wet napkin, but it's the fact that this game was able to go ahead and place that importance on him in the first place. It makes him much more memorable. It also just helps that he looks super badass and his name is fucking Salamander David, but I digress. It's with that proactivity that you make the choice to spare Ryoji and fight Nyx as a team, realizing that since you do have the ability to fight, that you should, and that erasing your memories of the Dark Hour would be a massive betrayal of everything that you've fought for until now. So Ryoji leaves as the new year comes around. January is where this game decides to stop pulling its punches, to stop under-delivering on almost every front. This is where the game fully comes together. The mood is tense, yet all of that tension is dashed by a strong sense of optimism. As the clock ticks closer to the end of January and you make sure you have everything you need to get the shit done so you have no regrets should you fail, how the team takes that despair and turns that into hope that they need to press forward. I love this part of the game, genuinely. Also, the music introduced in this part of the game is fantastic. Like, I know I've made my opinion about the other songs in the OST very clear, but this month alone is almost enough to save the entire thing for me. Almost. Changing Seasons is still fucking ass. As you go through your last few days of school, hanging out with your friends as Memory of the School plays is eerie as shit, because they don't know what's coming, yet you do. As you leave the school, though, and go out into the city, you get this strange sense of hope that comes flowing into that uneasiness, almost as if it's telling you to push onward, uplifting your spirits and sounding good as hell while doing it too. Finally, once you return to the dorm, the music gets serious, as if it's questioning what you're gonna do next. Everyone knows what has to be done. You and the rest of your party have to make sure that you're prepared as you possibly can be for the end of it all, which I definitely made sure to be. I had a group of personas that were pretty solidly set in stone by this point, and by that I mean I made Thor and his ultimate weapon. So yeah, I think I may have overprepared a bit. Oh, one thing that you definitely should do during this part of the game, though, is Aegis's social link. If you're playing anything other than the original Persona 3, because Aegis doesn't get a social link in that version, which is kind of insane because Aegis having a social link is like the biggest addition to Fez outside of, well, the obvious. But even with all of that, it's wholly worth it because it's absolutely my second favorite social link in the entire game. Akanari's is just a little bit better. The inherent fact that the link isn't available until January makes the social link all the more enjoyable because all the storytelling hinges on the current events. Throughout the game, and by that I mean mainly near the end of the game, Aegis starts to question her existence, as since she's a robot, she doesn't feel like she has a grasp on life at all. The fact that one day everyone around her will die and yet she'll still be around, causing her even more pain because she starts to gain feelings for Salamander David. Throughout the link, though, you show her that death is just a part of life, and even though she's a robot, that doesn't make her any less human than the rest of C's. Aegis probably has the strongest arc out of any character in this game simply because of this link's existence, which is more than what can be said about the other party members' social links at least. She's a great character, and this Link's addition just adds more to her. But anyways, when the time finally comes, the group is forced into Tartarus, and any bit of it that you haven't done up until now, you have to do just so you can reach the top. Which technically makes it so that if you really wanted to, you could just ignore Tartarus for the entire game and scale all of it in one night and then do the final boss right after. Now, nobody would actually fucking do this, but... Bear, did you? Yes. So anyways, you finally make it to the top of Tartarus, where Nyx finally makes her descent onto Earth and is ready to bring about the fall. Seas, however, have made their choice. They're not going to back down, and they step into this battle with their heads held high, paving their own tomorrow, and... This is a cool fight. Yeah, it's just another damage sponge that takes 18 billion hits to kill like every other boss in the game, but it's thematically awesome enough for it to not bother me as much as those ones. Like, first of all, the music. I am not joking when I say that this is not only my favorite song on the entire soundtrack, but it's my favorite song in the entire Persona franchise. It's that good. The song feels grand. It does everything it can to pump you up for this fight that, in universe, the team doesn't know if they're gonna end up winning. This final boss easily has the highest stakes out of any final boss in the Persona series, so that idea is incredibly fitting. The oppressive atmosphere, the imposing angle of the fight, the color choices, or rather, the lack of color choices in the arena, and also, I can't not mention this, dude. Come on! The way the song transitions into the damn Velvet Room theme is so fucking cool. Like, honestly, I can't imagine what it must have been like to play this game as someone who was a fan of the Persona series way back when this game came out. I can only imagine how that would have made them feel. I love this fight, genuinely. It honestly might be one of my favorite final bosses in any video game simply because of the vibes brought around it alone. It doesn't exactly have a lot going for it, but the little things it does really made me feel something, and I can't ignore those feelings. After a really good fight with almost no mishaps.
Oh
Jesus Christ! Nyx is defeated. Except not really, because you see the EXP screen right after you beat her, which can only mean that there's something after this. She gets back up again. Ryoji was right. There's no defeating Nyx. You cannot possibly prevent the fall. The party is then backed into a corner when they think that this is the end. Though, when all hope is almost lost, Salamander David stands up. He stares death down and, without hesitating, he faces it. He knows that there's only one way to beat Nyx. There's only one way to prevent the fall. One way to bring upon tomorrow. And it's to take it down with him.
I will.
Faces death alone in a one-on-one fight. He looks hopelessly outmatched, but nothing Nyx does can bring him down. Through the power of his bonds, through the power of the social links that he's nurtured throughout the year, he's able to endure everything thrown at him. Sure, it's a scripted fight, but it's everything that I ever could have wanted out of a final battle in this game. With the song that first played in that intro cutscene coming back in full force as you face down your inevitability, it causes everything you've done throughout the year to come flowing back into your mind. All the hardships, all the losses, everything, no matter the good or bad, has all been for this moment alone. And I think you all know what has to be done. To make sure that this battle is won with zero regrets, you burn your dread.
You got blood all over, ash all over, spit it out, some game's over.
Graduation day at Gekkoukan High rolls around sooner than everyone thought it would, though everyone else seems to have forgotten everything about the Dark Hour and thus sits down and watches the ceremony, though there are two people who didn't forget. Aegis and you. The two of you sit on the roof of the school, just waiting for everybody else, waiting for everyone else to fulfill their promise. As the two of you sit on the roof, Aegis just talks, and...
You must be tired. Please, get some rest. I'll stay right here with you. Soon, your friends will be here by your side. Don't worry. I will always be by your side, protecting you.
Alright, I've made up my mind. I'm not made of stone. This ending is fucking perfect, in every sense of the word. After Nyx was defeated, he used up all of his life energy to seal Nyx away, using the power of his bonds to do so. While knowing that this would eventually spell the end for him, he goes through with it anyways, but he only has enough energy left so he can complete his promise that he made to the group. His friends were his life, and once that he's guaranteed that they're all gonna be okay, he dies on the rooftop with a smile on his face, ensuring that he had zero regrets about what he did. How this game handles the concept of dealing with your own mortality, especially in this last stretch of the game, is flawless, because it's inevitable. We're all going to die one day. While obviously it's natural to fear your own death, it's incredibly natural to do so actually, as you grow older and that day gets closer, you have to learn to embrace it. Embrace the fact that your inevitable death is what makes your life beautiful. His life was much shorter than most people's, tragically so, though he was able to find meaning in it still, and he left his life behind with a smile on his face, leaving everyone else with the most precious gift that he could have given them, the ability to celebrate the time that they spent with him. This entire ending is fantastic, though while I do stand by everything I just said, I can't lie and say that it doesn't also frustrate me as well. But maybe not for the reason that you'd expect. Simply put, the reason why it's frustrating for me is that, well, it's the exception. December onwards, this game has no flaws that I can name, and if it actually does have any, then I honestly don't care enough to name them because they don't really matter to me all that much. Though that cannot be said about everything before that point. Yes, this ending is fantastic, but that doesn't distract me from the fact that it's like 10% of the game. I do think that a great ending can certainly trick people into thinking that an overall mediocre story is a fantastic one simply because of the fact that, well, if it's as good as Persona 3's, it's able to stick in your mind for a long fucking time. Though, even through all of that, through all of the shit that I've slung at this game, honestly, I don't know. I think I still like it. I guess it makes some sense though. The game was not only my first modern Persona game, it was not only my first super long JRPG, but it was my first Mega 10 game as well. And while the argument can be made that Persona 3 isn't exactly the most elegant entry point into that group of games, well, there's always worse. But even without that inherent bias, it's just a game that I've been unable to get out of my head ever since beating it, and honestly, I've grown to appreciate it more and more as more time has passed, flaws and all. In fact, I think a lot of those flaws really help emphasize the narrative that it's trying to tell. Like, the tedium in the day-to-day life segments of this game. They're tedious, obviously, but you know what else is tedious sometimes? Real life. The mundanity of our day-to-day life can get real fucking tiresome and boring, but once you reach the end of it all, you start to appreciate it. Just like how this game made you appreciate the day-to-day mundanities that life brings. Also, like I said earlier, the way the combat of this game makes you feel like you're leading the entire group is sick as hell, too. A lot of these things that the game does will come off as glaring flaws at first. And yeah, not everything that this game does will stick the landing. I still think a lot of the game is tedious as hell at some points and incredibly annoying, but it's not without purpose. What I love most about Persona 3 looking back is that it's proud to be itself. It tried so many unique things, and a lot of it ended up working out. It's kind of insane to think of how experimental this game was at the time, because a lot of this game's DNA is present in not just the games that Atlus makes today, but JRPGs as a whole. Though it's the things that Persona 3 tried that didn't catch on that I think make it stand out so so much more. The game does a lot of things that, at a passing glance, seem very anti-player, but as I said, they aren't without purpose. The game does these things to make you feel a certain way and to hammer home the narrative. It's a brilliant way of immersing the player in the world you've created, and it's something that's only unique to this game in the series. It's why I'm not really a big fan of how those elements are sanded off in the newer versions of the game, as you know they're only doing it to make them more palatable for a modern audience. And sure, that's fine. Like I said earlier, I think people should be able to experience this story regardless, but I can't help but feel like it's a little, I don't know, antithetical to what the game set out to do in the first place. There are people out there who can explain that a lot better than I can, though, and that's not really what I'm out here to do in this video anyways. My main point and main takeaway of this entire experience is that Persona 3 is a good game. It's a great game, even, I would say. I definitely wouldn't tout it up there as like one of the greatest games of all time, and it's not even my favorite game in the series, out of the ones that I've played at least. But I think it is incredibly important, and I really just... the experience was just really, really good. I'm even struggling to find the words to say it right now. I'm really, really, really happy that I did this video. And I'm really happy that it helped me finally cement in my opinions about Persona 3. It's not the best game ever, and I'm not gonna pretend like it is. There's still a lot of shit in this game, okay? It's a Persona game, that's a given. And I know what this video is called, you know, why do people like Persona 3? But I think I found the reason why. The game, the overall experience, is genuinely unparalleled, and it's very, very important, and it's handled with a surprising amount of tact that I genuinely did not expect out of this game for what it does for like 80% of the runtime. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I wanted to say about this game. I think I'm finally ready to put this topic to bed now. Live your life to the fullest, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Wait, Tyler, what about the answer?
The answer?
Yeah, the answer! You know, it's the epilogue to the main story, it's another 30 hours of gameplay, and it...
As you grow older and that gay, fuck.
I'm disappointed in you.